Find the domain of the following function. F of x is equal to 2 divided by the quantity x plus 8. So let's make sure we understand what it is that we're trying to find. We're trying to find the domain of the function. What is the domain of a function? Well, the domain is the set of valid inputs. So what we want to do is to find all the valid inputs for the function f of x equals 2 divided by x plus 8. Now sometimes it's easier to think of the set of invalid inputs first. So in this case what we want to notice is that our function is a fraction. What would cause a fraction to be undefined? Well, a fraction is undefined when its denominator is equal to 0. So what we want to do is to think, what is the value of x that would cause the denominator of this fraction to be equal to 0? You may be able to figure it out just by inspection, but what we need to do is to make sure that the denominator does not equal 0. So let me go ahead and highlight here. Our denominator is x plus 8. We need to make sure that the denominator does not equal 0. The denominator cannot equal 0. So what is our denominator? Our denominator is x plus 8, and we need to make sure that it does not equal 0. So let's go ahead and solve for x. Just simply subtract 8 from both sides, and we get x cannot equal negative 8. If x is equal to negative 8, then our function is undefined. Negative 8 is not a valid input. So just to illustrate this, let's go ahead and use our graphing calculator. First of all, go to y equals and enter the function 2 divided by the quantity x plus 8. Make sure that you use parentheses to enclose the x plus 8 so that you divide at 2 by that entire quantity. 2 divided by the quantity x plus 8. Once you've entered the function into your calculator, what you might do would be to create a table of values. So go to second window, which is table set, and what I suggest is that you start off with a negative value of x, let's say negative 10, and then use a table increment of 1. That way the x values will increase by 1 at a time. And then leave the independent and dependent variables on auto. The independent variable corresponds with the x, and the dependent variable corresponds with the y. Alright, well, now that the table is set up, go to second graph, which is table, and you'll be able to visualize the table for this function. Now notice in the table that when x is equal to negative 10, there's an output of negative 1. So x equals negative 10 is a valid input. When x is equal to negative 9, the output is negative 2. Negative 9 is a valid input. So both negative 10 and negative 9, both of those numbers are in the domain of the function. But when we get to x equals negative 8, the calculator produces an error message. That's because negative 8 plus 8 is 0, and 2 divided by 0 is undefined. So this error message is indicating that negative 8 is not a valid input, and so we need to make sure that we exclude negative 8 from the domain. But looking quickly at the other values here, we see that negative 7 is a valid input, negative 6 is a valid input, negative 5 is a valid input. In fact, all real numbers except for negative 8 are valid inputs. So the domain of our function is the set of all the x values such that x does not equal negative 8. So we can go back to our exercise and select the correct domain. The domain is the set of all the x values such that x does not equal negative 8. So C is our correct answer. X does not equal negative 8.